Alrighty, so today I am playing One Deck Dungeon uh, by Asmati Games. It comes in a very small box. It's a great little travel game to bring around. I still gotta get used to looking at this camera and not that camera. I'm playing solo variant today only because I am still getting my board gaming streaming stuff set up to a point where I can actually have people over and stream with people. This is my second test run. I'm going to quickly cover the rules. I do know there's one or two people from Player Me that said they were going to be here today that they had never played the game. I saw them bopping in and out of the stream before, so hopefully they come in and hang around and learn the game, but if not, it's cool. This is still a test run and I'm still building an audience. So anyway, the goal of One Deck Dungeon is you can play two ways. You can play single games. You can play one or two players. You can play up to 4 players if you have 2 copies of the game. You need to be able to see my mic levels too. There you go. Yeah, hopefully definitely some better luck today, Francis. The goal of the game is to basically dive through a dungeon. A lot of people call it like a roguelike type game for board games. It's not quite a roguelike, but it's a good enough approximation for what that is. And the idea is you will be going through some sort of place, like a cavern or a cave. Today we're doing the Dragon's Cave, and every cave has multiple levels. So in the base game, it's 3 levels. In the expansion, there might be more, or there might be variants with more. But in the base game, it's 3 levels. And basically, for each level, things get harder. And then when you get to the bottom level, you have to face the boss. And he has his own set of rules and stuff. And in order to do that, you basically have to explore and enter rooms and go through this entire deck. This entire deck represents 1 full floor. Every single card in this deck represents a time unit. So there's an icon, and let me see if I can find one that looks like this. That's a time unit icon. Anytime you see that, it basically means discard 1 card from this deck. Whenever you can't discard from this deck, there's potential to take damage, and we'll cover that if it comes up. But basically, on any given turn, you are either doing one of 2 things. So at the start of the game, we have a dungeon, and there's basically 2 things we can do. We can explore, or we can enter a room. Right now, we have no rooms, so the first thing that we can do is explore. And in order to explore, it means you take and fill up the dungeon with 4 potential rooms that you can go in. I guess the idea is that you can go north, south, east, west, or you're exploring a labyrinth or whatever. But every time you do this, you must discard 2 cards because it costs 2 time units to take an action. Okay, so if I take the explore action, I fill up to 4 rooms. If there's ever a case, let's say there's 2 rooms left and I take the explore action, I just fill back up to 4. Then as another action, I can enter a room. So the same thing, in order to enter a room, I have to discard 2 cards. And actually, when you discard, you actually get to see what the cards are, and I'll make room for that as well. So this will be the discard pile. And for 2 time units, I can enter a room. And entering room, basically, you just flip over a card. And when you flip over a card, you can do one of 2 things. You can either encounter the card, or you can flee the card. And there's 2 different types of cards. I don't know how well this shows up on the camera, but I think it shows up well if you have it full screen. There's basically a combat icon and a peril icon, and depending on the type of encounter, you either have to roll all the dice, or you have to pick an option if it's a peril and only roll 1 type of dice. So, how do you determine what kind of dice to roll? Let me make some room here. Slide this over. I realize we need more room over here. So your character comes equipped with different type of dice. They have a combat. I'm not 100% sure of the exact definition, but it's like a combat skill, an agility skill, a magic skill, and health. And basically, based on their stat, that is what you're going to be rolling. So for a rogue is very nimble, very agile. So a rogue gets 4 pink dice, which is represented by these 4 feats that are right on the card. Gets 1 sword combat die, strength die, and gets 2 magic dice. So at the start of the game, this is what I'm working with. Black dice in this game are called heroic dice. You can get them a number of ways. Some skills are going to give you heroic dice. You can combine any 2 dice to generate a heroic dice. So for instance, I could take these 2 and convert them into heroic dice. And when you do that, you always take the lower value of whatever 2 dice that you combine. You could do it with different colors. You can even do it with other heroic dice. For instance, I could combine this blue 6 with this yellow 3 and generate 1 black 3 like so. And if I do that, I remove the other dice. But I don't start the game out with any heroic dice. And basically, the dice that you have are what you can use on particular cards. So, for instance, this shadow right here, let's say if I'm encountering this shadow, I need at least 1 blue 3, 1 blue 4, 1 blue 5, 1 yellow 5, and then this big box means that I can use as many pink dice as I want to beat that skill. All right. So when I encounter this, something happens. There's usually an effect up here. In this case, if I encounter the fade, I have to spend 1 time unit for each skill that I use. Skills are on your character card here. I haven't talked about skills yet, but again, basically it's a penalty. If I use a skill, I have to take a time unit, and like we said before, time unit is discarding from this part of the deck right here. So when I encounter it, whether I win or lose, there's no winning or losing an encounter. Basically, if you survive an encounter, if you don't die, you always beat the encounter. But depending on how well you do, you are going to take damage unless you do really well. So anytime you look at a monster card, there's going to be a bunch of different symbols. What this means is you basically roll dice. Let's just pretend this is what I rolled. This is a pretty good roll. I have to try to beat all of these checks with the dice that I have. And any check that I don't beat, there's going to be a result based off of the icons that are here. And there's basically 3 icons. There might be 4 icons. But the general idea is, for any of these checks that I don't beat, if there is a heart when I'm done with the encounter, I will take damage. If there is a time unit for any of these checks that I don't beat, I will take time damage, which means I flip a card. Just means that I spent more time during this encounter. If there is a shield, I have to, before I can even beat any of these checks, I have to do the shield first. So I have to do 10 points of agility and tackle this 10 or more before I can even think about dealing with this. So let's say this was my roll. I'll kind of show you how this works. I decide to encounter the fade, and this is what I roll. So I need 10 or more of my pink dice first. So I have 10 or more, so I basically can do this, and that one check, for the most part, it's taken care of. I only have to worry about these 4. Right now, if I had no other dice, and I couldn't beat any of these 4 checks on the card, I would take 4 points of health damage and 4 time damage, because in all these boxes, there's 4 hearts and 4 time damage. Luckily, I have more dice to work with. I have a blue 6, so I can cover up that blue 5. I have a blue 4, which can cover up this blue 4. And then I have 3 more dice. Unfortunately, I can't use pink dice on blue. And my yellow die, I need a yellow 5, and I only rolled a 3. So there's not much I can do there. I can't combine dice on any single small box. If it was a large box like this, I could use multiple dice, but on a small box, I cannot. I must only use 1 dice on the small boxes. The only other thing that I could do is, like I said, I could take any 2 dice, like let's say these 2 dice, and I could convert them into a heroic dice. and a heroic dice is black, and all it means is that I can now use a black dice on any of the colors. So I could use the black dice. I can't use it on this, but I could use it to cover up this blue 3. And all I have is this pink 2 left. I can't cover up that 5. So that's basically the end of the encounter. All the boxes that I don't beat, all the checks that I don't beat, I have to take those effects. I did not use any skills. I didn't talk about skills yet, but I did not use any skills, so I don't have to spend any time units for using skills. And the only thing I have to worry about is this box, and I would take 1 heart damage and 1 time unit. Okay. However, in addition to whatever the card says, you also have to deal with whatever the dungeon says. And let me just kind of bring this up. The dungeon has 3 levels, and basically what this means is that anytime I fight a peril, or anytime I fight an encounter, I also have to meet these criteria based off of the level that I'm on. If I'm on level 4-1, I only have to worry about this box. If I'm on 4-2, I have to worry about both of these boxes, and if I'm on 4-3, I have to worry about all these boxes in addition to whatever the guy that I'm fighting is. So I don't have enough dice to take care of that as well. So basically, I would have needed a 3 on my yellow dice, and a 5 on a yellow dice or heroic dice. Since I can't cover up these 2 boxes, I'm going to take 2 points of damage and 1 time unit worth of time damage. But like I said, as long as I survive the fight, I continue to move on, I beat the encounter, and I basically get to keep this card as loot. And so I take the 2 damage. I would have to take the 1 time unit of damage. And now I get this card. And this card I can keep and use in one of 3 different ways. First thing I can do, I could bank it for its experience value. At the top of the card, there's these little symbols. And basically, if I want to bank the experience, I could just take this card and I can put it underneath the experience card like this. And I'm going to get 3 experience. Oops, and I just realized it's underneath the logo. I can get 3 experience towards 7 to level up. And as long as I get 4 more experience later on after any encounter, I can level up. And leveling up basically gives you more slots for items, more slots for skills. You get an extra potion. And last time I played, I didn't take the extra potion. Actually, no, I did take the extra potion for leveling up. I didn't take the extra potion for skills, which I'll talk about in a second. But basically, any monster is worth experience, and you can bank it and eventually level up, and that's how your character gets stronger. One of the ways they get stronger. The second thing I could do is I could bank this card as an item. And basically, if you can bank it as an item, you get skills added onto your character. So if I bank this as an item, like so, my character now rolls 2 yellow dice, and I also get an extra heart. So now I have 6 hearts instead of 6 hearts of damage versus sorry, I gotta do it this way. When you take damage, it goes onto your card. Because now I can take 6 hearts of damage, and I have 2 yellow dice, 4 pink dice, and 2 blue dice. And you get stronger that way. However, you are limited based off of your levels. I can only ever have 1 item at the beginning of the game, but as you level up, you get the ability to have more items, more skills, etc. Last part are skills. This particular card doesn't have a skill. This card has a potion, which I'll talk about in a second. But other cards have skills, and I could take the skill instead. Like, for instance, on this particular card, let's say I encountered and beat it. Basically lets me, for 2 swords, I can roll a sword and heroic dice. So it kind of lets you upgrade one of your swords to a better dice, persistence. And kind of also lets you reroll bad dice. So it's kind of a good card. And I can put this underneath my character here. And now I have a skill that I can use once per encounter, and when I can use it is governed by this little skill. That's this little skill icon that's right here. All characters by default come with a heroic power and then 1 other kind of special power. The rogue specifically, before any encounter, I can roll 1 or 2 heroic dice. I lose 1 heart in 3 time if either of the dice rolls a 1. It's basically a daring gamble. I can use it on any encounter but the boss. The boss, I cannot use this skill, but for any other encounter, if I think it's going to be a hard fight or whatever, I can do the skill. I can gamble as long as I don't roll a 1. I don't take any damage, and I get extra dice to use, extra heroic dice to use. Also, whenever I flee, I can add a door to the dungeon if I'm under the door limit. So in a case like this where there's 3 doors, if I was to flee a monster, I could put a door down versus having to wait to take the explore action to do that. Just realized there's no sound. Supposed to shuffle. Anyway, it's not like it's the best music in the world, but I need something. Otherwise I'll go crazy. So yeah. What am I? You should be looping. All right, perfect. So, so that's skills, that's items. The last piece that I kind of mentioned is potions. It's kind of like another skill. Potions require potions, which are these little cubes, and basically I can spend a potion to do whatever the effect is. By default, if you look over on this turn reference sheet, you get a potion skill called healing, which lets you heal damage up if you take damage. Lets you heal 3 from 1 hero, and I should probably increase this so you can see a little bit better. Or 2 damage anytime in the middle of a fight. So if I was to take this as a potion instead, I could put this potion down. Whenever you take a potion skill, you get another potion for free. So I would have 2 if I took that. Anytime you level up, you also get a potion for free. And then once you hit max level, every 5 experience points, you get a potion for free. Last time I played, every time I took the potion action, I didn't take a free potion. That actually made the game a lot harder. I looked that up and I made that mistake, and I solved that problem. So hopefully this game will go a little bit better than the last time I played. But in general, that's the general gist of the game. You go floor by floor by floor. You get stronger and stronger as you play. You can level up. At some point, you will hit the stairs, which is at the bottom. And there's some special rules of how stairs work, which I'll cover whenever it happens. But that's generally it. There's some different rules if you're playing with 2 players. I am playing with 1 player, so I don't have to worry about some of those rules this particular game. Also, this game is has like a mini campaign where you can get a bunch of skills and stats that carry over from game to game. Based on how well you do, if you complete a floor, every time you level up, if you defeat a boss, you get a bunch of points that you can kind of spec into a bunch of skills. And basically these let you kind of have a persistent character that you can try to go through all of the locations, which all have their own difficulties. For instance, the Dragon's Cave that I'm playing today is a difficulty 1. It goes up to difficulty 3. You probably can't see the difficulty, but here, I'll take another card. For instance, this is the Yeti's Cavern right here. And this has little 2 dots up here, which indicates that it's a medium difficulty, like the second hardest difficulty. Then there's stuff with 3 dots. That means it's like the hardest difficulty the game has to offer. So those are the rules. I am going to get started. I'm just going to shuffle up now, and then we will play a full game and see how well we do. I did play one other game last week and did not do too well, which is why I only have two points marked off on this little campaign sheet. Hopefully today I'll do a bit better. We will find out. It's dependent on the dice, etc., etc. So let me just reshuffle, and we will get started. And I have to look up one small thing as well. So I will get started in 2 seconds.